I don't see it. Okay, well, we got everybody then, so.
They're muted on their end, right?
Yes.
So, Carrie, we're all set?
Yes.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the regular meeting of the North Branford Planning and Zoning Commission for Thursday, January 21st. In attendance are regular members Sienna, DeFrancisco, Mason, Galdenzi, and Dulac. First order of business are our meeting minutes from January 7th. I believe Ron, you were the only person that was not there.
Correction, please.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
showing as being absent, and that's item 2. Item three is when I
I just can't tell
voted
you.
to approve the minutes.
None of,
All right, so let's make that,
What you would done that?
make a motion to amend the,
So he was
minutes.
whoever's talking.
Oh, you want me to do it?
Well, no, have somebody else do it.
I make a motion to amend the
So if you
minutes
want
from
to mute
the
them,
meeting
then
on
just go
Thursday,
to their
January
thing,
7th,
go highlight it,
2021,
mute it.
to correct Ron from being absent to being present.
Muted or?
Is there a second?
Mute them,
All in
Second.
favor?
'Cause they were
Aye.
talking.
Any opposed?
right. And or
Seeing
you
none,
can
that's
say,
amended.
please make
Now,
sure
if somebody likes to make a motion to
Mute yourself.
approve the
I'm
minutes.
not speaking.
Right.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January 7th, 2021.
Is there a second?
I second.
Trish, how do you vote? Oh, I'm sorry, any discussion?
He's in Branford.
Oh, where's the job?
Tricia votes yes.
Bill?
I vote yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
And I vote, yes as well, so that passes 5-0.
Who seconded that? Was it Bill?
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
Bill.
So, our next order of business is application 2020-13. That's for a text amendment to permit outdoor events and activities in residential zones, R40, R80, and 10 acres or greater. Before we dive into the conversation, since there's been some information being floated out there, I believe some of it inaccurate. So what we're going to do is Carrie's going to give an overview, a summary of why we're doing it, where it's coming from, and exactly what is in it. So everybody has a better understanding of what this regulations, the intention of this text amendment is. So I will turn that over to Carrie.
Harry, real quick, will you also just quickly go through the kind of housekeeping items, if you don't mind, or I can, just about how the meeting is conducted regarding when people can comment, and then also just a request that people mute their phones or their computers if they're not speaking?
Okay, I didn't know if you wanted to mute them and unmute them. Well, I was going to ask you that question. So do you want to have them throw their names up in the chat and say they want to speak, and then you can unmute them as you go?
Yes, that would be good.
Okay, I was going to do it after. So
Okay.
Yep, so we're going to, how we're going to start this off is Carrie's, like I said, is going to give a summary. Once we go through that, if you would like to speak, please send a note to Carrie through the chat function, okay? I know there's a few people on the phone, and what we'll do, if there's somebody on the phone, what we'll do is we'll ask, after everybody online has done it, then we'll get to the folks on the phone. And when you do, when your name does, when Carrie does call you to takes you off of mute, please say your name and your address and any comment you have.
Okay.
All right, so Carrie, you want to take it away?
So, I'll go over the general gist of it. Quick history is that in 2018, the concept of a text amendment regarding farm events outdoor farm events on farms in residential and industrial zones was proposed by a farm owner, which is Andy Bizzuto. He had hired an attorney to draft regulations, and that ultimately was withdrawn due to concerns about the proposed text amendment. About a year and a half ago, a similar text amendment was proposed by a farm owner, Van Wilgens. They are in an industrial zone. That was approved for farm events, again, on farms in industrially zoned areas. That has been approved and has been adopted. The Planning and Zoning Commission decided to revisit this text amendment due to potential interest for farmers to be able to hold events that are above and beyond their regular everyday operations. So that's just the intent. So again, the understanding was potentially if a farm owner wanted to host an event like a wedding, more than just once, more than just for a family member or a relative, a regular ongoing,
You wanna give me right.
sorry, there's a little bit of background noise. Regular ongoing events like weddings, then this would be possibly a tool to do that. And I believe that the intent was to both provide an option for farmers as an agritourism kind of option, but also provide some kind of protection for neighboring residents that are in, again, a residentially zoned area. This is a working document. It's definitely, not done by any means. I think that the commission, and I'll let you speak to this, Harry, but has been working diligently to get input from people, and clearly today especially we received numerous comments from a variety of people, property owners, residents, the Farm Bureau. Joan Nichols I see is on the meeting, which is great. So clearly there's some more work that needs to be done on this. We're happy to go through all of the comments that we've received, but I think that, again, we can revisit this, the commission can revisit this and go from here, because I believe that the intent of this was to provide an alternative, an option for farmers, something to help them. The intent was not to hurt farmers or farming operations or over-regulate in any way. It was, again, North Branford is seen as a farming community. Supporting farmers is the intent of this. So with that being said, again, this proposed text amendment, the goal was to have a special use permit, something that would be applied for as an option by the property owner. It would be through a public hearing, and would be, again, for these multiple events that would be done through, as a business, run as a business, a wedding, and outside events that are not connected to regular everyday farming events, not related to picking your own, hay rides, farm stands, etc. A lot of the work that I think needs to be done is clearly the distance, the separation from the events that are being proposed and the adjacent properties, as well as the property line. And then some of the requirements that we talked about in this proposed regulation, such as an A2 survey. Clearly we heard at prior meetings that was too onerous, and so maybe instead some other kind of a drawing or site plan could be required, just something to show what the expectation is. And I think that we have other towns that we can look at that have this in place or something similar. So again, this may be back to the drawing board, but that's just a quick intro, if that's helpful, Harry.
Harry, you're muted if you're talking.
Thank you, Carrie. And just to kind of add on to what Carrie was saying is that, this was something that it came up before, it was industrial zone. This commission wanted to be proactive to create an opportunity in the residential zone for our farmers, where they could do the same thing that it's happened that was passed in the industrial zone. This isn't to regulate, but this is to make that, if you wanted to market the farm for these types of events, we want to make it so it's permittable. Right now, there's nothing in the regulation that makes it, it's not in one of the regulations that makes it permittable. So that's why we wanted to put it in there. We knew that we wanted to solicit comments from the community on this. We always said that we were not going to push this through quickly. We were going to start it out in December and go all the way through the spring and keep it open to around maybe March or April, and have everybody take a look at it. We understand that some of the distance requirements could be tweaked, but we had to put something in there as a starting point. And as a group, as a commission, that was the numbers that we came up as a starting point. We were very clear from the start that this was a working document, that we were not going to be pushing this through very quickly. We wanted input from everybody. So, but we wanted to be proactive to start the process to say, there's another opportunity, and hopefully we can work together to create more opportunities for our farmers and for our community. So that being said, before I open it up to members of the public, does anybody from the commission have any comments before we get started? Okay.
The only thing I was going to say, I think Carrie described it very nicely in saying, in a nutshell, she said it has to be a balance too between this is events in residential zones. So it has to balance. We recognize and support our farmers. We also have to recognize these are in residential zones. So what we don't want is farms to become wedding halls in residential zones. So we have to strike a good balance between the farmers and having you be productive, but also balancing that with the residents, because these are in residential zones.
Thanks, Bill. Anybody else?
Hit the chat.
So, Carrie, if you want to, we'll open the comments to the public. To the public now. As I mentioned, let Carrie, send Carrie through the chat, that you want to speak. When she does unmute you, just please, your name and your address. And for those that are on the phone, I think there's one or two people on the phone. If you do want to speak, we will get to you towards the end, if that's okay. So Carrie, I'll push it over to you.
Yeah. I don't have anything in the chat right now. Clearly, so I will just say for the record, I shared all of the comments that I received via email, let's say prior to 4:30 this afternoon. I emailed them to all of the commissioners. We've placed the ones that I received prior to earlier this afternoon on the website, the town website. We'll post the rest tomorrow. Just so that it's up there so that everyone can see. I understand it's challenging with the town hall being closed, but I think it is important to have all of the comment letters available for the public to see.
Carrie, can I just say one thing?
Yes, go ahead.
I tried to go on the chat line. It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Well, that's because, right, so you can't share your screen, Cliff, but you can chat. You should be able to send a message.
I did, but you don't see it. I said I'd like to speak, and you don't see it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I don't know why, but go right ahead. I'll defer to Harry, but.
Yeah, your name and address.
Okay, 1257 Middletown Avenue, Northford, Connecticut. And I guess basically I'm still wondering about the way the farmers are not being notified. And you've gotten some pushback. I'll give you an example. Keith Bishop had no idea any of this was going on, and he owns quite a bit of property in our town. I think if we don't get the farmers at least a mailing, it's not fair to them. I know it's only big events as it stands, but it's a farm event. that maybe some of the money made on the events will let him buy more seed and maybe plant another acre of corn. So yeah, there's a thin line between the big events and maybe running the farm. I get that.
So,
But we're not taking care of all our farmers. We've tried to get the word out. We've had to go social media. We've had to contact the state ourselves. And we've gotten some, you know, we're just trying to help you help us. But if it's happening in secret and there's not a mailing that goes out,
so I, you know,
we're not going to reach everybody. And that, I don't think that's, I think it's a disservice to our farmers. It's been a concern of mine right along, and I've addressed it. And again, in April, maybe we can come to some kind of different format for a meeting.
Well, Cliff, I mean, how are we gonna get the word out? We can't, from the town, notify each individual for everything that comes through planning and zoning.
No, but
We've asked you, now on this is the third occasion, we've asked you and Bill to help get the word out. So we've done that. We've got feedback. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna continue on this process, talk with people, work, you know, like it's a working document. And in the meantime, if there's somebody that, you know, if there's somebody that you feel that needs to be contacted, or somebody from, you know, from any of the local farms that can, you know, that know people to get the word out, that's how we need to do it for a lot of things. We've put notices in the paper, there's no way we can contact everybody that needs to be involved, because if we miss somebody and they say we were contacted, then there could be lawsuits and everything else. That's part of the reason. But it's just difficult to get the word out to everybody. So that's why we're gonna keep this open. And if our farmers would like to do something that puts an event type of amendment and want to put this through and do something for the summer, we can't wait to April or May to do it. We could not do anything with it. We can hold on to it. I mean, it's not, if this isn't acted upon, I mean, it's not acted upon, that's fine. I mean, then you just can't market farms as as an accessory business for these types of things. But we're just trying to help the farmers out the best we can.
Okay, I'd be willing on my own dime, if Carrie would email me the farmers list, I'd send them all postcards. I would feel bad if
we can't do that, because we can't give you the list. We can't miss, how if we miss somebody?
Well, I'm the former Ag Commission chairman. I'm still an Ag Commission events coordinator. I still have a title within the AgCom in our town. It would be legal for me to do this because this comes under Ag Commission.
I'm not sure, and I'm not gonna put this, I mean, Carrie might be able to find out, but I don't think we can share names of addresses to the public. So I'm just.
Well, just to kind of jump to, Cliff mentioned the Ag Commission, and again, not to kind of pick on Joan Nichols from the Farm Bureau, but she is a kind of a key player in this, just because she represents, we don't have an active Ag Commission, and I feel like Joan does a good job of representing the state. So in a quick summary of her comments, she outlined some concerns, which are great, but the thing that I like the most about her letter is she said, here's what you can do next if you want to have this in place. And one of those actions was to have the Ag Commission reinstated, or at least at a minimum get the farmers together. So one idea is to withdraw this for now and then revisit it once we have something in place. Meaning, like, once we have a draft that the farmers or a group of farmers, a subcommittee or something has worked on, or not. Maybe there's no interest in doing this. This is the second try for this, so maybe there just isn't an interest in having things like weddings on farmland in town, which that's fine.
I have 2 points. One is, again, can we be careful of our word choice, because words are powerful, so please stop using the word secret, because nothing's being done in secret. I made that point last week, and we just have to proceed in a way where we're cautious with our word choices. 2, I was in a meeting, to Carrie, to your point, I was in a meeting on workforce housing, And one of the suggestions, you know, because that could be often very contentious, one of the suggestions of the people on this, you know, workforce housing committee was do a lot of the work offline, you know, have a lot of meeting and discussions with all the constituents offline, you know, and then you present something, you know, more on the record. That way there's less contention around it. So much to your point, and much to many points that were made and have been being made, is, you know, withdraw the application, you know, start working together more offline with an ad commission, you know, as Joan pointed out, have residents, you know, from the areas that could be affected in some of these areas on part of the talks as well, and the planning as well. That way, again, if you're interested in this, we will do a lot of the work together offline and then present something online that runs, you know, a little bit more smoothly, where the balance has mostly been achieved.
Okay, then I would like to suggest that you withdraw this present text amendment, and we will more than work with you to try to get the Ag Commission back up. I'm sorry, I'm retired. I dropped the chairmanship. I deal with some guilt for doing that, but I'm also 73 years old, so I'm trying to balance. But we were successful. We've got a tin roof put on the barn. And our town, like a lot of people have said in the video, it's a farm town. We've got to keep it a farm town. So I suggest you stop the text amendment, and we really will try to work hard. I'm sure I'm speaking from some of the other people, and get it going, and come up with a 3 or 4 person commission with one of your group and the farmer group and maybe a town councilman, and put your heads together and see what we can come up with. But I think it's probably not going to make this summer. Our summer should be trying to survive the COVID. That's where, you know, what should we really have to do? Again, our words are not mean. Our words are words of concern, because we've got such a great town. We have such hardworking farmers. Let's have a chance to brainstorm with what little brains we all have left and make this work. Somehow, you know, because out of every meeting comes good answers. Both sides give and both sides take. Are you willing to go that route tonight?
Thanks, Cliff. Would anybody else like to speak?
Yes, we heard from Valerie. She'd like to speak.
We do just hit this.
There you go, Valerie.
There.
Okay, hold on. Good evening.
Your name and address, please.
Valerie Trotta, 83 Cedar Lake Road, North Branford, Connecticut.
Thank you, Valerie.
Longtime North Branford resident. North Branford and Northford really was a farming town. We're losing a lot of our farms. I would much rather see these events going on than developments. I would like to see it stay as much farms as possible. Let these people make a living, an honest living. You know, with the pandemic now, I don't think anybody can handle any additional charges being put on. And, you know, I'm glad to be part of North Branford and a farming town.
Thanks, Valerie. Carrie? Is there anybody else?
Any other residents? Or
Hello?
yes,
Hi.
go ahead. Would you like to speak?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Hi. Lori Vogt, 1175 Foxen Road. Longtime resident also, and very happy to be a North Branford resident. I had a couple of questions. I went over the text proposal just an hour ago because someone asked me to. And I want to know the ability for a farm to do an event. Is that unrestricted right now?
I guess
or is it that they're not allowed to do anything right now?
the question comes down to what type of event you're talking about. So if you're talking about a one-time So in relationship to this, if you're talking about an event, for a wedding for a family member, that's, you're free to do that. If you're talking about having every Saturday, a large gathering of people where cars are coming in and there's music being played and there's caterers and it's a regular event that's not connected to a farm, meaning, you know, farming, again, like a wedding specifically, that's not covered in our regulations right now.
Okay, so, in a residential neighborhood, any resident can have a wedding on their property, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and any resident can play music on their property every single day if they want to, correct?
Yes.
And is there any kind of zoning restrictions as to how many people you could have at your party?
I think it would come down to, the regulation would come down to parking. It depends on the situation. I think what you're talking about is a one-time, one event. So if you have a wedding at your house every weekend.
Not necessarily. I know some people who have parties every weekend with noise and music till all hours of the night every weekend.
So I guess, and
So my
those are.
question to you is, would it be more feasible to, instead of being so specific, and whoever is available to write these up, you know, if any of this sounds like a good idea to them and they go grab it, you know, but would it be more amenable to the farmers if you would just put like a limit as to how many events you may have and like a number of people limit, like no more than 6 events in a year for up to 100 to 300 people, and no more than 10 events in a year for up to 50 people. And then if they meet those requirements, they really don't have to do anything.
So that's what this regulation would do. What happens is or this amendment, all we would ask is if there was a owner of a farm that wanted to do this, that they would just come in and we would just do something, a simple site plan, so we understand where it's being on the farm and just to ensure the safety and some of the things we look at as a site plan, and also looking at the neighborhood as well. But there's no we don't want to put a restriction on the number of people, number of events, but we would get an idea from their business plan. See, when you're talking about the resident, you know, people that at their house have parties at their house, they're not, I would hope, they're not marketing their house for a party. So I mean,
You would hope.
Well, they may, I don't know, I'm just gonna assume they don't. But what we're looking to do is to create this amendment would be so our farmers can market their farm for different types of events. Then if they wanted to go through that process, then all they would have to do is come back to the commission and with like, you know, some type of site plan just to get an idea where they're gonna host the events and take a look at that. And then we would ask sometime at the beginning of, let's say, the spring, before their events start, just to give us an idea of the number of events they're gonna be doing, and you know, maybe the number, or approximately number of events, approximately number of people. And then if they were having more events, then maybe just update that by sending a simple note to the town. So we're trying to keep it as simple as possible. It's following exactly what we did with the industrial zone. So it's not like we're taking we're overreaching. We're doing exactly what we did for the industrial zone, but we're trying to create the same opportunity in the residential zone. I hope that makes sense.
Somewhat, but the paperwork that I read, the 3 pages that were available to read, seemed very specific. You had to have a plan submitted by a specific date. I mean, some people don't have events at their farm and know that far in advance, and sometimes they may not know a week ahead. they may say, okay, I'm feeling like I have a space available for, maybe a 20-person get together for this, that, or whatever. Maybe I'll just put it out on social media that I have some slots available for next Saturday. Let's see how many people want to show up. I think the texting that's listed, it just seemed can I finish?
Oh, yes, I'm
It just
sorry.
seemed too restrictive, too specific. And I think something that would be more in the line with is if you plan to have an event that entails more than 6 times a year, if you go over 6 times a year, then we need to know about the rest of them. Or if you're going to have an event that's more than 100 people on your property, then we need to know about it. But other than that, don't bother us.
That's a good point.
Is that her son?
Thank you.
Harry, if it's all possible.
Oh, sorry, Ed, we just have someone right before you, but then, Shannon asked to speak, but then we can, Ed, can we go to you after, Shannon? Sorry.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Ed's letting Shannon go.
Yeah. Shannon, oh, there you are. Oh,
Are you there?
yes.
Okay, so my name's Shannon Macio. I'm at 45 Great Hill Road in North Branford. And I heard about this through social media, that this was going on. And I just wanted to express a few different things. We mentioned about the trying to get in touch with the farmers. And somebody was saying that we can't do that because we might miss somebody. Well, when there's a public hearing for one of our properties, we have to notify the people around us. So I'm sure the town has some sort of records that knows of all farming properties of 10 acres or more. And if they're not sure if they're a farm, then maybe they notify everybody that has 10 acres or more that this is going on and send out a public hearing notice to them, just so they're aware. I don't see how that would be any different than a regular zoning situation with a particular property. So
Well,
it's just,
Shannon, we would have to send it out not only to every farmer, but then to every resident, probably within a half a mile or even a mile of a farm, because it affects them too. So in essence, this would set a precedence that any business that we would do, and any department or commission would do, a notification would have to be sent out to every resident in the town, because it can affect them even though you may not think it will.
mm-hmm.
We can't do that. We've been trying to get the word out. That's why we said we're gonna keep this open for a long time. We're not gonna, until we get buy-in from our farmers and go through this. If we're just not gonna arbitrarily pass it. We're gonna leave it open, and if we don't get the buy-in, then we'll just do is we'll rescind it, and then start. I mean, we can start all over, or somebody else can take it and go for it. Again, we're just trying to create an opportunity where our farmers would do something, could do something on their farm that currently isn't permitted. That's all we were trying to do. It's just trying to create another opportunity for them, as we did with the wineries, the breweries, and we saw this opportunity again. We saw it in the industrial zone. We wanted it to replicate it for those that have farms in the residential zone. But if everybody feels, especially the farmers feel that that this isn't good enough, that we can't tweak it, that we want to start from scratch, we'll rescind it and start over. I mean, that's fine. I mean, and we'll get the word out the best we can, and we'll get the ad committee going again, and however long that takes, and to get those folks together. But we were just trying to create an opportunity, because hopefully, maybe this summer there would be some opportunities for folks that can't have a wedding in some of the regular facilities and wanted to do it outdoors, where there's more people allowed. We just thought this was a good time to do that and to create an opportunity. But yeah, if there's that much pushback on this, then what we'll do is we'll just we'll rescind it. And if we don't think we can make tweaks to it to make it work, the distances, setbacks, we can make those changes. Those are numbers that we put in there. It's a starting point. A lot of this was a starting point. It's a working document. But if this isn't, if this doesn't really, if we can't make changes to it, then we'll rescind it and we'll start over, and, you know, whatever time it takes to do it, it takes time to do. But we were just trying to help our farmers out.
Well, thank you for the explanation. The other idea that I had as far as notifying people was we all get those broadcasts from the town manager whenever something huge is going on, whether it's a brush cleanup because of a storm, or, you know, trash pickup is changed or something like that. It's just another idea. It would probably be less expensive for everybody if you didn't have to mail out certified letters. Just another thought. The other thing that I have, and I was just writing down some notes here, is you're talking about site plans for events. And I also noticed, I just kept hearing the word weddings. So I guess my question is, why is this focused on weddings? Weddings, weddings, weddings. And yes, I know the time, and yes, I know about outdoor socialism and things like that going on, but if you are talking specifically about weddings, then it should be called weddings on a farm. But if you're talking about events that draw in additional people, you want farmers to be able to raise money for their livelihoods. So if that means that their farm needs to be successful in offering things on the weekends for parents and kids to come out and do, or elderly people to come out and do, example, they could have a berry festival one day, or 1 week, they could have an antique car show the next week, they could have a tractor pull the week after, they could do, you know, something to do with kids. They could be like a, I don't know, a big petting zoo. There could be something every single weekend, which is definitely within farming regulations, trying to get their farm on the map and them earning a living. That's how they make their living. So I guess my problem with this entire thing is you want them to submit a site plan to have it set in stone. That doesn't exist. Every single thing that I mentioned, all those ideas that they could be doing every single weekend, they all would revolve around a different site plan. And if they're going to have a wedding on their farm, I think that's good. Farming, weddings, having people do weddings on the farm, yeah, that's something that's up and coming. But that's getting more money to those farms. If somebody doesn't want to go to a farm that isn't a true farm, then they're not going to go there. So what I'm trying to say is, if you have a successful farmer and they're trying to do everything they possibly can by working that land and growing their vegetables or milking their cows or doing what they have to do, and they have to go that extra mile to sell that farming experience, that's within the realm of owning a farm. Yeah. And that's why me, as somebody that's not tied to this at all, you definitely need a subcommittee. Because from a regular citizen and from somebody that has I have two toddlers, and I get excited about when there's farm events going on, you're taking that away, not only from the citizens, but you're taking it away from the farmers' livelihoods. And the other thing I have to say about it.
Shannon, can I ask you a question? What do you mean we're taking it away from the farmer's livelihood? This isn't. You
want a site plan with specific non-variable sites.
No.
So how can you have a site plan for an antique car show, a berry festival, a petting area thing going on, a kids fair, a blueberry fest? How can you have the same blueprint site plan for every single event? And what astounds me is everything is focused on weddings.
Shannon, can I start? Shannon, can I just interrupt you for a second?
Absolutely.
So let me read you the regulation. It says it included, but not limited to, weddings, corporate events, dinners on the farm, drive-in movies, etc. This regulation does not apply to farm-related events, including pick your own, hay rods, farm stands, etc. So we're not limited to anything. There's not a limit. We're not limited to limiting what you can do there. We just gave some ideas. Somebody might have mentioned weddings, but there are other things they could do on the property. The reason we asked for a site plan, yes, you are correct. If you're having a car show or a tractor pull, we don't, what a farmer, where they do things on their farm, we're not trying to regulate it. What we're saying is that if you have a temporary structure, such as a tent for an event, we just want to make sure that it's in a place that is on the farm that also, as Bill Galadenzi mentioned before, protects our the residents in the area, where it's for enough distance away where if there is music or whatever it might be, so everybody can have a good quality of life and everybody in these events can be successful. So we're not saying that if you're having a car show one day, you have to put a site plan for that, or next week you're doing some kind of other event. We're just saying that if you're going to use a tent for some type of your events, where are you generally going to put it? Because we do want to have some setback requirements from the other adjacent property owners. So we can work with the farmers. If he says, well, I might put it here, but I might move it over here for another event, that's fine too. We would just need to know that so we can ensure that it fits the requirements and also protects the neighbors or the residents in the area. So that's all it is. We're not asking the farmers to come back every day to us because they're making a little change.
Every event I mentioned would require a tent.
Okay, so then when the farmer came in or the applicant came in, we would ask them where is he, where is intended to put the tent or wherever it might be. And if he has multiple spots, then he can just tell us multiple spots and we can look at that. I mean, we're not restricting. We're not trying to restrict anything here. We're trying to create an opportunity for our farms. Just like you said, it's a great place to go and there could be a number of events there. It could be beneficial to the community and to your kids. And we just thought it was a good idea to start the process. But thank you.
Thank you for letting me speak, and I do recommend the subcommittee if you're going to proceed.
Yep. Thank you.
I think Ed Fountain, you're next.
Hello, Carrie. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Can you see me okay?
Yes.
Very good. Long time no see. I'll just come out really quick and just, as somebody who's been on the Zoning Board of Appeals for over 15 years, I understand you're going to be leaving, and that's sad. I feel sad about that.
Thank you.
So I have a couple questions. At the moment, Carrie, if a farm wanted to have a commercial business hosting any event outside of farm-related activities, i.e., the petting zoo, hay rides, stuff like that. So at the moment, could any farm throw up a tent and engage in the business of public gatherings for commercial use?
In a residential zone? Is that what you're?
Well, no, on the farm right now. I have a farm. I have whatever the acreage requirement is for a farm. I have 20 acres. I have a farm, and I want to put up a building or a tent, either permanent or not, or temporary, and host weddings every Saturday, or host anything, bar mitzvah, birthday.
So if the underlying zoning is residential, which most of the town is, then no. Technically, no.
Oh, okay. So forget all the details of the requirements and what have you. At the moment, any proposal that allows for that is an expansion on land use and property rights. Is that fair?
Yes, I guess you could say that. It's
okay.
It's a modification to the regulations.
Mm-hmm. So at the moment, and I'm just going to use New Biggs Farm because I know it, right? So at the moment, New Biggs Farm cannot, hold large gatherings every weekend as a part of their business.
Correct.
Well, wait.
Okay.
Wait. So you're asking about a specific property right now?
No, I'm just using Newbigs as an example. Any given farm, any farm, anything that's currently in the town,
Right.
a
isn't-
farm,
Yeah, okay.
farm, pays taxes as a farm. Do they have the right as it stands to engage in the business of hosting events?
I think this is what we just
Outside
talked
of-
about.
And to answer the question, no. It's not-
Okay,
yeah,
so
I
that's,
think your key point was in the business of, right? If
Yeah.
it's for a family, for a family member of the Newbig family, of course you can.
Right.
It's just like your own home could do that. But in the business of hosting a wedding or an event, no, then the answer is no.
okay, so putting aside all of the specific thoughts of setbacks and what have you, putting all that aside, this regulation allows for increased land use, increased use of that property in its business capacity.
Make sure it's not.
Correct.
Okay, so,
And
I mean, here's the thing. So I came into this, I'm only newly educated on any of it, so I do apologize. But, you know, as a, I'm sure Carrie will stand up for me on this, is probably one of the more libertarian voices on the ZBA. You know, I always want to always want to err on the side of a personal property's rights. So if at the moment it's restricted to engage in the business of holding events on the farm, and this allows for the engagement of business in holding events on a farm, that's a net plus, at least in my book, because our goal is to increase property owners' use, and ideally that would mean, you know, income, and the such. So it would seem to me that the only area of any contention I hear is either A, the setbacks and details of allowing it, because you're increasing the scope of a zoning regulation, and perhaps the process by which such a thing would be approved. So it would seem to me that, you know, I think everybody is on the same page of wanting to increase the ability of a farmer to use his property for commercial business. At least that's what I heard, and that's what I believe, that we should certainly be expanding what they can do, not restricting. With that said, then all we're really concerned about, or at least me or anybody else that I think I heard, was, okay, we want to make sure that if we're going to expand the farmer's ability to use his property, we want to make sure that we're not going to put a tent 15 feet away and put 200 people in it. That's fair. You know, I think that's fair. I think, I mean, there's all kinds of setbacks that exist already, and I mean, I believe it's 50 feet. I personally didn't like or agree with the 150 or 350 foot lines, but like I think we discussed, if that's open for negotiation, I think ultimately it's an increase. It's a net positive for farmers, is what it sounds like. If it's something that they're not able to engage in now, and if after the regulation they can engage in it, then that's a good thing, I would think. And I think, getting to like what Shannon said, those events, it's true. You know, you don't know where a tent's going to be from time to time, but I think that most farmers probably do. So perhaps somewhere between, you know, the 350 foot mark and the 0 mark is something that's both palatable to everybody. And I would think that even if a site plan, you know, like I don't think that people should have to file a site plan every time they want to hold an event. That's ludicrous. But that said, if they're going to be in the business of holding events, then I think a single one-time site plan where, you know, proposed temporary or even permanent structures were to be is fitting. That way there, you know that if Newbig's Farm, and I use it again as only an example, if they wanted to host weddings every Saturday and car shows every Sunday, regardless of what it was, they would have some sort of proposed area where they can and cannot put up, temporary structures or something. I don't think it doesn't sound to me like it needs to be anything more than, 3 or 4 paragraphs worth of reasonable, restrictions on, but those restrictions are on the improvement of property rights. So what we're saying is, if I'm hearing it right, is, that you can't do this right now. We want you to be able to do that as long as we're not putting 200 people in the front lawn of your neighbor. I mean, is that fair?
Yes, I would say so, Harry.
Yeah, yes.
So, I think getting the farmers together and coming up with, I wouldn't even think it would take more than, 1 hour, 12 donuts, and maybe a couple cups of coffee to come up with a reasonable line to where you can gather, a crowd of people away from the property line. Again, my personal opinion is I think even 150 feet is ludicrous, but that's up to the board and the farmers, and I can understand not wanting to have large outdoor bands and crowds of people, going into the middle of the night. And I think there's already, noise limitation rules, and I think even with respect to capacity, I think that kind of skips over, not to diminish P&Z's relevance, but the fire marshal pretty much has the ultimate authority on crowd sizes and capacities. And even if that's for a temporary event, I think that's the case. So it doesn't sound to me like anything restrictive is being added to it. It sounds to me like it's just a matter of how we want this expansion of use to be cool with everybody else.
That's
So-
pretty much, that's pretty much in a nutshell, exactly what we were trying to do.
I mean, I wanted to make sure, I had talked to a couple of friends earlier tonight, and, I was just knocked off my shoes here to think that we would do anything to restrict the land use. But if I understand that it's an expansion of land use, then I think that's, it's fair that, if people who live next to a farm or whatever, I mean, obviously, they don't, you move next to a farm, you don't expect to end up living next to woodwinds, and I think that's fair. I think that there's got to be some middle ground there, but I mean, ultimately, I'm in favor of anything that expands anybody's ability to use their property.
Yeah, and that's perfect, because I mean, that's what the commission was thinking when there was a text amendment for the industrial zone, which it was Van Wilgen's. That's what got us thinking again to do residential, to create the same opportunity that's in the industrial zone that is in it's the residential zone. By using a lot of this information was right from that the one we did for industrial, except for some of the setback stuff. And again, we can tweak those as far as the site plan. We can tweak some of the language around the site plan. We need to get something to show us what will be happening on the property with this. So it might not necessarily be this an elaborate, site plan with all types of architectural stuff like that. But we can work on those things. But that's what our intention was, to work on those. Again, use this as a working document and have people provide their comments during the public hearing part, which we're doing tonight.
So Harry, we just have one more request from Joan Nichols from the Farm Bureau to talk before
Sure.
you maybe take any action.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Carrie. Good evening, everyone. My name is Joan Nichols. I'm the Executive Director, Connecticut Farm Bureau Association. We're a nonprofit. We represent about 2,500 farm families in the state of Connecticut. We're based in Wethersfield. I want to really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I have submitted my comments in writing, so I'm not going to go over those in great detail other than ask you to refer to the document that I submitted to Carrie later this afternoon. I think what I'm hearing, and I'll just back up by saying that I've been working with farmers and municipalities for probably close to 12 years now as my previous role as Director of Member Relations and Community Outreach. And I worked extensively with towns on the development of regulations for farms in probably the last 5 to 6 years. The focus has been on-farm retail, and in the most recent years on agritourism. In fact, right now, in addition to North Branford, I've got 4 other towns that I'm working with. So I appreciate the fact that the town of North Branford is willing to allow farms to do events and agritourism on their farms. I think that's great. I read over your POCD, and that certainly fits within the goals and objectives of your 2019 Plan of Conservation Development. I think what we're hearing is that, and what probably the farmers are hearing, is that while the town says, you know, just submit a little plan and tell us what you're doing and you'll be fine, when you actually read the regulations, they're far more detailed and restrictive. And again, I'm not going to go over those, but I think we've all gotten to the point where we agree they're far more restrictive than they need to be. So I think I'll just leave you with maybe the process. And it's been my experience that the best process and the most productive use of everybody's time is to not vote on these regulations as proposed. Reseat your ag commission. It's my understanding North Branford was one of the first ag commissions in the state. Reseat your ag commission, get the input from the farmers, of which many of them have already submitted comments to you this evening. Come to Farm Bureau. I'm more than happy to share the regulations that have been adopted in other towns in Connecticut. You don't have to reinvent the wheel here. Sit down with the farmers, get the input from your Economic Development Commission, some members from P&Z, some of your non-farming communities, come up with some language that everybody is going to be able to live with and is reasonable, understanding the needs of the flexibility of farms, and then go to the public hearing process. And by the time you get to that point, most of what we've heard tonight would have been vetted out, and it's really a far more productive use of everybody's time. So I think I'm going to leave you with, please feel free to utilize Connecticut Farm Bureau as a resource. The other thing is I have, we don't share our membership list, but I certainly have access to the farmers that are Farm Bureau members in North Branford. It's easy for me to communicate them through our channels at the Farm Bureau. But I'm more than happy to work with your Ag Commission or your Planning and Zoning Commission or your future planner. Carrie, good luck with wherever you're heading.
Thank you.
And help you with this process. And it's really, it's a challenge, but it's not difficult. I'll just leave with that, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Yes, we have Keith Bishop was also asking to speak. Let me just make sure he's...
Your name and address, please?
Okay.
Hi there, good evening. Yes, Keith Bishop. My address is 25 Meadow Ridge Lane in Guilford, my home address, and our business is 1920 Middletown Avenue in North Branford. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you here this evening. Not new to the process and being on board the commission for 25 years in Guilford. Appreciate the service of the members of the commission and know it's a difficult task sometimes to then hear members of the public come forward and how we fully understand what your intents are. But it's great to see a groundswelling of people that now do know about the process and what's going on here to be a part of it and hear the work that Carrie and the commission has done, trying to expand in reasonable ways what farmers can do for additional innovation and ways to keep our farmland open. So our background, I'm 5th generation on our farm in Guilford, and then going to North Branford, 1973, our family bought from a young family where we are, the 35 acres there. And then my mother's side of the family is the Lindsley family on Twin Lakes Road and had a substantial farm that existed decades ago and still have Juniors and Van Wilgens are cousins of ours that maintain, as you know, farms in Branford as well. So with that said, looked at the setbacks and the other pieces of the puzzle. I put a letter in here that I don't want to go back and read the whole thing. It's in the testimony. And says many of the things that have been addressed by you folks as well. Joan just put things together very well. I do serve on the State Farm Bureau Board as well as the New Haven County Farm Bureau Board. And we do want to get the Ag Commission back invigorated again. Reasonable things of having stuff like that wane and what the attention is needed. But this is a perfect example where Ag Commission being involved with P&Z, Economic Development Commission, to pull together to say what are the reasonable things to protect both the neighbors as well as to allow farmers to do things that make sense on their properties. That said, for our property and knowing, Van Wilgens and others here, you want to have certain things, but the reputation of the farm is at stake in doing these things. So if things go wrong, if crowds are rowdy, if the noise is too heavy, there's going to be objections. There's going to be, police and noise or other complaints coming in. That's not going to help us as individual landowners going ahead. So I think I speak for most, reasonable people, including farmers, that want to take and do the right thing, but the onerous look at the way in which the application and a special permit process is for, just to be able to take and do these things gets to be a tougher one. I think we can simplify that. It can be based upon the number of events that are allowed with basic additions to what you'd have to do for a number of events under 10 a year. And if you're doing more than 10, then there's a higher level of requirements to make sure for the safety and so forth that goes on for those events. We all know that farming is tougher here in Connecticut, and every year has new challenges. And most farmers enjoy doing stuff with their hands, with the land. And when you get into the paperwork and added burdens like that, it's a whole nother challenge. And it takes place at other hours than during the daytime when you're trying to take care of your farm work to get done. So it can be done to help make that easier. And again, the Farm Council, Farm Ag Commission can most certainly help in that regard. I think we do want to have farmers continue to invest in their properties, and that brings back tax revenue and gas to the town. It helps other businesses in town. Hopefully, once we get out of the COVID situation, that you want to be a destination. You want to have people open up other businesses in business zones, and the spillover effect from people coming for farm events will stop it. Restaurants, the pizzerias, and the other shops that they pass along their way when they're out for a day trip to come to a farm for things. I hope all of you will watch the Economic Development Commission's video, and that is a 5-minute video that over half of the video time is spent showing images of farms in the wonderful town of North Branford. So I want to continue that piece of it with what P&Z cooperates with to make this stuff possible. There are many reasonable parts of the regulation proposed, and the things that have hour restrictions, music volume, number of events, the food safety, attendance limits, parking things are all very reasonable. I'm not sure whether Carrie can pull up the image that I sent to her that showed the impact of speed on our property. Could you bring that up, please, Carrie?
Yes.
Our property, despite it being 35 acres, and what you'll see is a rough approximation of 350 feet. It's tough to do with graphics without having a CAD program to exactly put it together, but there's a Google Earth image that she'll pull up here. And Hang on a second. Distracted from what I was going.
That's
through.
all right, I had the wrong thing up, so.
Okay. Are you wanting me to share my screen?
Oh, sure, if you can share yours, that would be great.
Okay, yeah, I can do that. Let me pull that up, Gary. Just gotta go to the other folder and get that up here. Sorry for the delay. Many different things on the computer here. Okay, here we are. All right, I'll go to share box. Okay, so you can see the targets there that show a house on one side and what the impact into our orchard itself is. It is almost 5 times, taller in general than it is lengthwise than it is widthwise, and it is nestled in between housing developments with Young Apples Road on one side of it and Burnscliff Lane and Reed's Gap North on the other side of it. We bought it to continue it to be in agriculture, and that's our long-term intent. But this was carved out and saved, and the farm was saved by selling off house lots that abut us. So 350 feet wipes out the back half of the property from having any events or anything on it if you want to get farther back up on the property and be away from the main road. And our current farm stand is on the bottom end where my mouse is pointing around to here. And again, the setbacks proposed would eliminate using the parking area that now exists, that we then take people for the wagon rides up into the orchard to do the pick your own and so forth. So things like that need to be addressed. We've got existing facilities and parking areas that are used to, and if they're wiped out, to say, well, you can't still park 75 or 100 cars in that same area to then have an event in the evening or after hours with other stuff is, that's a economic impact and would not allow us to have that type of a thing happen. So just want to quickly share that and what the impact of that looks like as the current proposal. I'm talking with other farm owners here that are both present and probably not as well, is to withdraw this, completely now, send it back to a revived Ag Commission and smaller group to come back with proposal that then makes sense and would be ferreted out. So when you come to that public hearing, we'd have very high consensus of what needs to be done to allow farmers to prosper and protect the neighbors and to grow agriculture and keep it thriving in North Branford. That's my take, and I appreciate the time to speak with you tonight.
Keith, thank you. I do have a question for you. On the map that you have, which is,
I'm sorry, I'll reshare it here. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. So what would you think, or what would you recommend for the minimum distance between the off-site residence and from the property line? What, on your particular property, what would you think would be what would you recommend as a number for those two setbacks?
I think, unfortunately, a lot of things are really site-specific. And so that you're trying to write something that then is, general, you're going to cut into a place that then has maybe some natural sound barriers. What is it you're trying to protect? Is it noise? Is it lights? Is it what they're looking at that they want to take and see?
So to answer your question would be all the above, everything you mentioned. So we just want to make sure that if you do have a temporary structure and you're for an event and you're going to have some music, we just want to make sure that it's a distance away where if you're doing it every other weekend or whatever it might be, that it really doesn't have an effect on the neighbors, you know, that are the adjacent neighbors.
Right. Well, I think, the music and the noise that would carry, I think, the number one concern of neighbors, and the noise emanating. And I know Guilford has regulations regarding entertainment and restaurants, zones and that type of a thing. And I didn't go to read yours, but you've probably got similar things there for, entertainment. So allowing non-amplified music to be done, having decibel levels to be set. Guilford has a decibel level setting for noise ordinance. If you don't have a specific noise ordinance, that then a decibel meter can be used to help monitor.
Oh, we do. North Branford does have, that's an ordinance in the town of North Branford. We do have it.
So, refer to that, and then that's your enforcement level. And again, if the farm is going to regularly do multiple events a year as part of their business plan, they're going to want to comply. And I'm not going to want to have a loud band come in, brought in by a wedding venue, want to do weddings, that then is going to turn around and cost me money and headache on future events, or have the town be monitoring and neighbors calling the town offices all the time. So the volume piece of it is definitely one side of it. At some point, what it is that repeat events you continue to take and learn, one after the other. A 20 to 50 person event is different than obviously a wedding to host under a humongous size tent. So back to your question of what's the setback requirements, once you get above 50 feet, then you start impinging upon the flexibility within site. And you can't see the topography on this site, this view of it, but we're on a hillside, and the areas that aren't planted apples currently in the front side of it, it's all a pretty steep area, so you can't put tents, chairs, and things, into that. If we were to use this as an example, we'd have to almost be cutting down, apple trees to either make a parking area or to put up a tent. If you were to do that, then you would need electricity, and the cost of electricity to run it 1,000 feet back into the middle of the property is ultra expensive. So then you're talking about, generator in order to have power, or not having power, at all for something to go on, but yet for food safety and other reasons, you do need electricity for most things these days. So the site, a lot of the presentation piece of the farms that exist around town. But I would start with 50, and you already have in the regulation is proposed, and it should come out in the final one too, that given extenuating circumstances, you can be more stringent based upon the site itself, and you may need to make that, 100 feet on north side, and feet on the south side, and the other side of the road, and the road separates things far enough out that you don't need to worry about anything closer to the road than what regulations allow for structures to start with. I don't know if the answer to your question, Henry, or not, or Harry, excuse me.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Harry, is there anybody else?
I think that is, that was every, oops, that's not what I want. That was everyone that had reached out at this point.
There's one person on the phone whose phone number ends in 7150. I'm not sure if you have any.
So. Let's see, I'm just unmuting. Might be Andy Bizzuto. Andy, with the code, oh, there we go.
How about that? Does that work here?
Yes, perfect.
Hi, Andy Bizzuto, Ames Pond Road, Northford, Connecticut. Excuse me. So I've listened pretty intensely throughout the evening to all the input, and that's all positive things. But let's be very clear. 5 years ago, I brought an ordinance to the town of North Branford with Attorney Pellegrino, the late Bob Criscola, and a lot of town input. That ordinance was all prepared and unified for all farmers, and it was never thought to be anything other than the ability to have agritourism, including weddings and their such. I am the farm that brought it forth at that time because I specifically wanted to have weddings. I, to this day, have weddings on the farm. I've yet to have a complaint from police and or fire. I've checked with both the chief of police and fire. Never a call or never a complaint. Let's not forget, I was the one bringing regulation in the beginning. It ended up in a meeting in North Branford one evening where all decided that maybe we shouldn't have regulation around farms. And that was after I spent well over $10,000, $15,000 in legal fee. And that meeting, you told us it was unnecessary. There was a group of people there, Mr. Rose himself, a friend of mine who has a farm as well. And at that time, it was decided that there could be weddings in your backyard for your daughter in a residential zone at any time, anywhere. Residents themselves can have a wedding of 100 people in their yard because there's no regulation about it. There was not much discussion thereafter, and we at that time decided to not press the issue. The zoning board, many of you were there, decided there wouldn't be an ordinance at that time. But in between that time and today, there was an ordinance developed. Not an ordinance that was singular and for all, but yet an ordinance that was specific to commercial property or business zone property, let's say non-residential property. So again, we brought an ordinance forth that was universal for all, like most towns have, excuse me, and it was somehow subdivided into two separate categories. Mind you, most of the farms in the state reside on or near residential property. Every time a farm goes out, they usually build houses. Mr. Bishop himself spoke a few minutes ago, saying how the farm was much larger at one point, and they actually subdivided some house lots to keep the farm afloat. So very few are left in business zone. The only complaint I do have is that, and again, don't forget, I was bringing regulation so that we can actually give the people the opportunity to see what this farm does. Mind you, we've had Hamden Hall and private classes of student base. We've done all kinds of things for New England organic farming and other events. So it's affected a lot of lives. It's brought a lot of people to town, and it's good for all. I'm not against regulation, but I am against separating the two and having specific ordinances for each type, let's say zoning, I guess. If there is anything that needs to be resolved, in my book, it is the setbacks. I built a building that is specific for weddings, and it does fall short of the setback that's presented. And everybody knows here well enough that my neighbor is the guy that sits on the board too, and I'm not, and he's a very good friend of mine. Let's be specific. I brought the ordinances in. I'm not against it, but the setback definitely does encroach on what I've already built and established and actually brought forth a number of years ago formally, before I went through with what I've done. So I'm already past the temporary tent, and that doesn't exist. And my footprint is established. After bringing it forth, I'm not really looking to be changing what I've done to date, but I am open for suggestions, and I agree with some of the prior speeches that we need to relook at this. And maybe the Ag Commission is a great start. I know we had it, and I don't know, it did fall apart, but we at least should stop for a moment, make sure the setbacks work for everybody, because they definitely won't work for me. But that's all I got. And I'm really glad and I'm thankful you all sit there. It isn't easy. And you all know I've been on board similar, so I'm sure we'll get through it. And Carrie, good luck in the future on your endeavors. I'm sure we'll run into you in Essex at some point.
Thank you, Andy.
Any way I can help, just give me a shout. You all know where I am. If I'm not at the office, I'm at Mill Pond. So feel free to stop, love to talk if you have any of that info.
Thanks, Andy.
Appreciate it.
A couple points on that. One, again, I'm going to stress this again, that we put the number to 350 feet and 175 is basically the placeholder or a starting point, because we knew we would be working with others, and that could change. And one thing I want to point out as well is Andy did mention he did bring a regulation to the town, but before the planning and zoning could act on it, it was rescinded. We were in the process of discussion. The reason why the separation of industrial is different. It's not it's meant residents in the area. There could be some, but in the industrial zone, it's industrial zone for a reason, because of where the location is. So there is a slight difference between having something in industrial zone and residential. So that's why the separation. But again, Andy, that was rescinded before we had a chance to even act on it. So we now have the opportunity. El Rose is part of the town council. At the time, I'm not sure the conversations we had with town council, but the town council has no bearing on the regulation that you put forth. So any input from the town council was not sanctioned by the Planning and Zoning Commission, which has the governance of that. So I just want to.
I totally agree. I totally agree with that. And Al was only there speaking as a resident and fellow farmer in town. He was not there speaking as council member, and that was not the case. But there's plenty of record about that meeting. So.
Yeah. But I just want to say that we took that under advisement. And that was rescinded, and that's why when the industrial came back up, we wanted to go forward with this one again. And again, we table this, and they can go and revamp it and get more input. But that was our intention, is to bring what you started back to life, and so create this additional opportunity for our farmers if they wanted to take advantage of it or not. So. But thank you, Andy, for your input.
No, that's fine. And I thank you guys too, and appreciate your time. Just make sure we're all included on this, so that we get it final.
Yeah. Carrie, is there anybody else?
Yes, Keith Bishop.
Oh, go ahead, Keith.
If everybody else is gone, one quick question, just on the legality side of what you proposed and recognizing that there are substantial changes from the legal counsel side of it. I think it's best to draw this whole thing and then pull it back rather than thinking that you can legally make some changes here in the short term and put it forth and vote it. I know you do have on your agenda tonight the ability to act upon it. Want to point that out. The second question is more to sort of Carrie and Harry. Where does the 10-acre cutoff come from? Does that come from analyzing the size of what farms are in operation and what exists and making a arbitrary level, or where is that 10 acres? Because somebody can be doing something on a very limited scale and be a great small farmer and contribute a lot of value on a high production per acre, or you can be something like sweet corn that takes lots and lots of acres to do. So can you answer that 10-acre piece, and that may be something to visit itself?
you want me to take that, Harry?
Yeah, the 10-acre one, I don't recall where that we came up with that.
So, I believe the minimum size of a farm to be designated, for land to be designated a farm is about 4 acres. So, going up from there, it was really looking at how much extra room there would be for farming operations, plus allowing, room for parking and for an event. So it's not an arbitrary number, but it seemed like a reasonable size, I think. It also, I think, came from the original application that Andy had proposed, quite honestly. So, no scientific method behind it, Keith.
Oh, thank you. Because one of the pieces is a lot of us have land that's split up and across the road one from another. So then is that 10 acres a contiguous parcel that you're applying for? Or is it the combined acreage of the farm itself? And then you can get into the whole, what's really usable on the farm or not, and the number of pieces back up into woodland and wasteland that can't be farmed, can't be put a tent on, or you can't park on. And so there's lots of factors that can be subjective, and you can park a lot of cars on 43,560 square feet. If it's one flat area, just look down there at the high school and what you could pack in, and then what would be supported by, event space, around something like that. So want to have that taken into consideration as we move ahead with the concepts that are put forth.
Keith, it is 10 acres of continuous property, not the accumulation of multiple properties.
That may need to be looked at when somebody's got something that's across the road from one another, and I don't know the ownership situation of, parcels that might be in consideration for that. So appreciate that being part of what's on the list.
Carrie, do you have anybody else?
Not at this time, no.
Okay. Any commissioners have any comments? Ron, Alex, Bill, Trish?
Ron on anymore? I don't see his name.
I see it. You're unmuted.
That's me, Elizabeth.
Oh, you're Elizabeth. I think.
Yes, I have a couple of questions myself, and I tend to agree with what Cliff said, and he was willing to reactivate the Ag Commission, and only because, to quote, I don't know what I don't know, in that, I've seen the full spectrum of the farmers in town, going from don't walk in my fields because you can bring in a foreign bacteria to my crops, to I'm going to have a dirt bike track on my farm. And we talk about weddings and loud venues, and what comes to my mind is Harley weekend and dirt bike. You can fit a half-mile dirt bike track on a 10-acre farm very easily. So I think like I said, I don't know what I don't know. And I think we should really take Cliff up on starting the Ag Commission and let them draw the line in the sand where, with a farm, weddings, petting zoos, as opposed to dirt bike racing and Harley weekend is. And
just let me go on record here. This is Cliff. I will not, I am a small part of the Ag Commission doing small things, but I'm not really Ag Commission anymore. It was time to try to live a life of retirement before I shrivel up and can't move anymore. And so I think we need an AgCom, but it won't be me being chairman again. it's not fair to my wife. She put up with the phone company, the military, and the Ag Commission. Now it's our turn. So, but I think it's the right way to go, believe me.
So Carrie, let me ask you a question. Can we, I don't want to keep on tabling this every week for the agenda. Is there a way we can not vote on it, but also not put it on the agenda? So as we go through it, because I don't want to, vote to rescind it, because then we'd have to go through another public hearing. We go through all that. Since we've already started, what are the options the commission has to kind of table this?
So I think that a withdrawal might make sense though, Harry, because it sounds like there's enough revisions that you'd want to re-notice this, because it could be totally revamped and be in another section, and just putting it out there, it may not even be a special use. So because we're not sure what it will end up looking like with these revisions, I think that it is in the best interest to just kind of to start from scratch. So in the sense of the administrative process. So I would recommend withdrawing and then having a group get together and then re-advertising the new proposed regulation, if there even is one. So I guess that's the other concern. If you table it, it's just kind of hanging out there. I think it's better to just kind of close the loop.
Okay. No, the only reason why I wanted to do that is if it was similar, if everybody got together and there was only a couple minor changes, then we wouldn't have to go through the process. If it's much different, then yes, we would have to rescind it and do another public hearing and advertise for that. So that was my only, I was just trying to save one step, but yeah, we could rescind this. I mean, if that's what the commission wants to do, that's what it sounds like. Again, we were just trying to help create an opportunity, but since there's opposition to this, I think, I agree that we rescind it, and then we'll just do another we'll do another public hearing and go through those through that process. Does the commission agree with that? Trish, Alex, Bill, any thoughts? Ron?
Yeah, I agree. Just to be clear, I think everyone said this, but just to be clear, I don't know if it was Shannon, Joan, I don't know, someone said this, but the suggestion of there'll be a committee put together to be the reinstated Ag Commission, including economic development, a member or two from P&Z, and then a member or two, or however, from a resident as well, from the residential perspective. I think, just to go on record, I think for me, that's the right approach, right? It's not just the Ag Commission, it's not just P&Z, right? We're all agreeing now, where I think what I'm hearing is it's got to be a collaborative effort, so it should be all those 4 or 5 groups that I think Shannon or Joan or someone eloquently stated. And it resonated with me, and I think that's the right approach.
Yeah, that's what Joan wrote in her letter.
Okay, right. Thank you.
So if that's the case, so Carrie, we just need to make a vote, just do a vote and vote to deny it, basically, right? Or rescind it.
Rescind it.
Right, rescind it?
I would even say, well, I would think a vote to withdraw. I don't know legally.
Yeah.
I think just because it's out there, rescind in my mind means something that's already in action, meaning implemented.
Yep.
I think you're just withdrawing the application.
Okay. So would somebody like to make a motion on that?
I will. I make a motion to withdraw application number 2020-13, text amendment for special use permit farm/outdoor events and activities in residential zones on farms 10 acres or greater.
Is there a second?
Second.
That's Ron. Is there any discussion? Bill, Alex?
No.
Trish, how do you vote?
Tricia votes yes.
Trish?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So the motion 2020-13 is withdrawn. All right. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining. Next order of business is application 2021-1, a site plan for the town of North Branford, 305 Forest Road.
Evening, everyone. Jim Preddy, Crisco Engineering, and Brian Cleveland from Silver Petroselli also on, representing the town of North Branford and the police commission, I guess. We are presenting the new police station that will be constructed at 305 Forest Road. You guys have kind of briefly seen this already. It's the property known as the Mooney property. It is approximately 13.5 acres on opposite of where the Cocoa Festival normally is. It's been a hayfield for a number of years, and then in the back there's a wooded steep slope that goes up to the Tilcon property. If I can, I'm going to share my screen. So here, can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the entirety of the property. Again, this is the hayfield area, and this is the wooded area that's very steep that goes up to the top. What we are proposing is, and this plan is just that front half. We're proposing a new approximately 15,000 square foot building for the police headquarters. This is the drive-in from Forest Road on your left-hand side. Visitor parking in the front, extra parking on the sides. The patrol car parking would be mostly in the back. There's an option for future carports to be over the rear parking. That's why they're kind of set back the way this is. An impound area and a future metal building for storing things such as, you know, accident vehicles and that sort of thing. I'll zoom in a little bit. Again, access points at both ends of the building, a rear access point for the officers. Main entrance is out in the front here. There's the vestibule area, and we could look at the plans with Brian and shortly. Handicap parking in the front, dumpster in the rear, so the dumpster truck would come around to here, empty the dumpsters, and then come back out. We have provided, this is our grading and erosion control plan, and not that we need to get into the details of the grading, but there is a retaining wall that will go along the back, because this is, you know, a slope site, and they need a pretty good size area that's relatively flat, but no more than 8 foot high in the back. Typical erosion controls on the lower side of the road, some of which are in now because Public Works had already started removing some of the trees. But typical silt fence around the side, construction entrance where it's actually installed already now. Our drainage system would be a series of catch basins around the building, you know, with grades pitching away from the building, then a couple of oil water separators for each half, and into a underground stormwater storage system, which will then discharge to there's actually a low depressed swale area there now. We would clean that up. The runoff, the overflow from the underground structures, which I don't anticipate to be much because the soils are very permeable, sands and gravels. Any overflow will go into this detention area or this swale area, and then into a series of catch basin pipes that cross the road, and becomes part of another town project to realign the Public Works Drive with the new Police Department Drive, which would provide much better sightline, safety, traffic organization, etc. We provided, this is This is just our utility sheet noting the new septic system for the facility, which has already been approved by East Shore Health. Location of the well for the facility in the rear, which we had sent the required screening form to Department of Public Health, and they indicated that because you don't have more than 25 people in the building on a daily basis, that this can be a local approval only needed for the well. Standard details, again, this is just standard stuff. Erosion control. I colored up our landscaping plan just to give you a sort of a feel for what's a hardscape, what's not. Again, there's the roof, there's 2 buildings, paved area. There's some lawn areas around the building. Landscaping is kept sort of minimal because we're trying not to create major maintenance headaches for the PD. Some of the areas outside of the mowed lawn will be reseeded with erosion conservation mix, so it'll be kind of the high grass that was there previously. And that's the site in a nutshell. And this is a sight line sheet. I do have floor plans and elevations, but I don't know if Brian wants to actually take control of that, or I can go through it.
Yeah, I can if you'd like me to.
You want me to let it go, or do you want me to put it on the screen?
Go ahead and put it on the screen.
There's the first floor plan.
Right. So as Jim had mentioned, again, my name is Brian Cleveland. I'm with Silver Petrocelli and Associates, the project architect on this. Have been working with the PD now, I think, since 2016 on whether or not we were going to renovate their current building or move here to this new location. So that's just a little brief history. Obviously, we landed here and we're looking at doing a 15,000 square foot footprint building on the property. We have had extensive conversations with the committee on developing the program for this, trying to minimize the overall building area for efficiency of cost, of course, but to still have all of the functionality that they're going to need within their new facility and not outgrow it within the first 5 years. So as Jim had mentioned, I'll just do a quick walkthrough through the building. This building is turned 90 degrees counterclockwise from where you saw it on the site plan with Forest Road at the bottom of the sheet here. We come into the main vestibule into a lobby space where we have both the dispatch and the records. So public access to those services are right there off of that main lobby. Beyond that, it's through a secure door into a major north-south corridor that runs through the entire length of the building, which will serve to access all the different departments within the facility. Primarily the admin wing, which is on the left side of this plan, on the north side, houses the police chief, deputy chief, administrative sergeants, detectives, etc. Towards the south end of the plan, we have three things primarily happening here. One is the sally port for the 2 bays to allow at least up to 4 vehicles and your largest ambulance, fire truck ambulance vehicle into that space for emergency purposes. Below that is the detention area. We have 3 detention cells within this area with a holding area, booking, and some storage spaces if there's some weekend guests that are going to be staying here. To the south of that, we have a meeting room, which is envisioned to be primarily used for the commissioners as well as for police training, but potentially could be used for other town meetings if necessary. To that point, we have created a secure vestibule just off of that area. So you come in the south end of the building into a secured area where there's 2 toilets, and you cannot then get further into the corridor unless you have key card access and get through the double doors that are there. We do have a second floor in this building. It is primarily used for mechanical and storage purposes. We also have our IT room up on the second floor with the stair access you can see kind of in the middle of the building. Just to jump back down to the first floor if we could. Most of the patrol officers are going to be coming in through the middle back inside corner there where the mouse is. So that's one of the primary reasons why we put the patrol cars along the back area there. It gives them easy access to getting in and out of the building. It also does protect and hide all of those vehicles behind the building from any views from the road. So go ahead, Jim, you could jump to the elevations. So the materials for the building are envisioned to be a Connecticut fieldstone for the base of the building. So around the majority of the base will be 30 inches high of fieldstone with a cast concrete cap on top of it. That fieldstone will turn into the recess where the front entrance is and where this extended roof overhang happens and go up the wall there. The main body of the building will be a board and batten siding, fiber cement, low maintenance concerns, painted a shade of off-white. The windows are aluminum framed windows, both operable and storefront. They are designed to be black anodized or powder coated aluminum, kind of making a modern feel out of a traditional form of this milk barn idea that we had for the overall aesthetic of the building. The roof is also a gunmetal gray standing seam metal roof. And as you can see, we have a clear story running the entire length of the attic space, the second floor space there. We can jump to the next. Yeah, we could go to the renderings. So this will give you a sense of the materials that I just mentioned to you. Again, the black standing seam metal roof or gunmetal gray, fieldstone base, and the white board and batten with the white trim around the black windows. We also do have signage shown on the building prominently in that front right-hand corner. You know, it's the corner that is the closest to the primary entrance to the building. We also have a 40-foot or a 35-foot flagpole just near this area, which we can see better obviously on the site plans. We also are making provisions, but will be part of another application for a sign to go near the road, also identifying the police station closer to the actual intersection with the driveway.
This is the flagpole location.
We do have mechanical equipment located behind the building. Those four larger pieces of equipment there that Jim is circling are going to be enclosed behind a privacy fence similar to the board and batten that we have on the building. So it'll match kind of the aesthetic that we have going there, about 6 feet high with a gate so that we can have access for maintenance. I think that, I could also jump to the other couple of pieces of equipment that we have on site. On the bottom right-hand corner here is the location that we've selected for the generator, the transformer, and I'm not sure what the other piece is.
Oil tank. Oil
tank, okay. In addition to that, we also have a below-grade cistern for the water supply for the sprinkler system for the building.
It's under the pavement here.
So that's as much as I have for the description of the building, unless there's other questions that we need to address on that. I will mention that the highest point of the building is 35 feet above the average grade around the building. So that's the top gable of the clear story roof.
I have a question on the typo, on the graphics, you said it's very sloped in the back, so what's protecting the runoff or redirecting it?
So right now it's hayfield, and this any disturbed area up here will actually get replanted with the hayfield. So it really won't change the way it runs off now. Anything that runs down and gets into our paved area will be collected by our our system and then further slowed down and cleaned up. But the point of kind of fixing up the area that we disturbed with the higher grass is because it really slows down and just about eliminates the run.
Gotcha. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Is everybody on mute or you don't have any questions?
Yeah, Harry, I got a few questions.
Please.
Here, let me. There we go. Sorry. I'll first piggyback on the question that you just had, Harry. Is with the topography map that you had before, and like your current map that you have right now, you have a lot of excavation of the soil and everything. I was just wondering, where's all that soil going on this parcel? Because you said you need it to be relatively flat for the building. But if you're not changing the slope in the back, I was just curious where you're moving all that soil to.
Jim Preddy again. Most of that soil will be moving across the street. There is another project that I'm just started working on for the town that involves sort of regrading and leveling out the field for the Poco Festival area grounds over there. And Public Works has expressed an interest in using this material. It's actually very good material. Even if it doesn't get used in the field, they want it because they can use it for other stuff.
Okay, so for the purpose of this project, it will just be stored over there, and regardless if it gets used for that future project or whatever down the road.
The plan is right now to use it on the field across the street, but if not, Public Works will find a home for it.
Okay, but off-site from this parcel of land.
Correct.
Okay. Another question going into, and this, you guys started talking about this at the very start of your of describing this whole project, is there's another project after this to restructure the entrance of Public Works, so that way it makes it safer and aligns the two driveways. But the one thing that caught my eye was the drainage piping going across 22. Is that existing drainage that's going across the state road, or is that something also that's on a contingency plan that would have to be approved?
No.
So one thing that I'm concerned on is you have all this drainage piping on the current map, and if you had one of those rain events that we've seen of more and more of late of the past so many years, could this currently hold that, or do we need that drainage system from the get-go when this goes online to prevent any major runoffs?
So part of the plan I'm working on with the town Public Works is the extent, right now the road drainage from the state highway kind of runs off into that field, and it's created sort of a wet area there. And part of the issue, and then when that fills up, it runs north, actually around behind the buildings over toward that dog park area. Part of what they want to do is to try to amend that. The other thing is the state road is very flat here, and last thing we want is to have bird baths in the area of where the police cars are coming in and out. So that's why we added catch basins at both ends of the driveway, and then both ends of the Public Works driveway, basically to keep that intersection as dry as possible. We have sent this to DOT. Candidly, they were okay with it, but we are meeting out there, and so there may be some minor changes, but in general, they thought we were heading in the right direction. This is kind of open-ended because we hadn't yet figured out the ultimate plans for the field, and we didn't want to. We don't know what that's gonna look like that, so we didn't wanna hold up the, police department with that plan. If nothing else, right now, this can discharge into that low wet area where where the state road already does. We're not really adding anything to it. Like I said, the overflow from our site, I'd be surprised if we see it, but it would have to be a serious event, more than we've seen, because we've run the numbers and we're not really expecting anything. This ditch is already there, and there's a kind of a paved leak off right now that we're going to put stone in, but part of this side of the road kind of drains into there, so we were just making sure that we provided a way for the water that already comes off the state road to get back across the road.
Okay, so you say you're confident with these plans 90% of the time in case we had like a 100-year flood, everything that's just on that one parcel would be more than adequate enough?
The soil is very good there.
Okay.
I don't expect the issue.
Okay.
I mean, when there's a 100-year flood, people aren't worried about parking, they're worried about life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't anticipate any problem. But again, we will be meeting with the District 3 drainage engineer out here, with the town engineer of Public Works, and any adjustments we need to make, we'll do.
We also, as part of the application, the stormwater calculations were submitted. So obviously Kurt's reviewed that, and if the commission was okay with the other components of the plan, we have drafted a motion that has 2 special conditions that I can go over, when the time's right, but it relates to requiring that the town engineer coordinate with DOT and, prior to the final site plan being approved. So we recognize that there's, components that still have to be finalized, and the town would work with, obviously, the engineer, the project engineer on the final construction. I guess just other staff comments real quick. The zoning enforcement officer, Tom Hogarty, had mentioned about lighting, just that full cutoff lighting as depicted on the cut sheet are acceptable. One question that he had, though, is about the bollard lighting, that it may require some kind of louvers or something to eliminate glare from the sides if that does occur. I don't know if that's the case. The lighting plan did show that the lighting does not go past the property lines, but it's just a question about the bollards and how those kind of throw the light. And as Jim mentioned, East Shore was okay with the septic plans, and it sounds like everything is okay regarding the well, that it is a private well, not a public water supply. The building official just said that the plans must comply with the Connecticut Building Code in effect at the time of application. So those were the main comments that I received.
Right, and I do want to, as we were talking about this, I did want to bring up the lighting plan and at least present it to demonstrate what we're achieving here and how we're achieving it. So I appreciate that comment about the cutoff and the bollards. But would you like me to at least walk through the lighting plan so that we can hopefully answer any questions you may have?
Yes, please.
All right. Jim, you need me to share that?
Yeah, go ahead. I thought I had it right here, and I know I have it. I just didn't have it in the same folder.
Yep.
And the commission members should have hard copies of of the lighting plan.
Right.
And the cut sheets.
Yeah, thank you.
So just to zoom in real quick on the cut sheets that were included on the plans. As was mentioned, we did ensure that we were using full cutoff horizontal fixtures on 20-foot poles for the site lighting around the parking lots. Again, each one of these full cutoff, all of the particulars here are demonstrated with each of the types.
Brian, are you showing me something?
Yeah, I thought I was.
No, I gotta stop first. There you go.
There you go, yep.
All right. So in addition to the pole lights that we have on here, A, B, C, we do have several wall-mounted building lights that are also helping to light the parking area. Again, full cutoff, mounted to the building. These are about 10 to 11 feet off the ground. And then, as you were mentioning, the bollards, 42-inch bollards near the front of the buildings. Again, these are all designed by the same company. Our intent was to make sure that we were getting full cutoff so that we would not have any light trespass or glare issues with any of these fixtures. So to come to, I think, which may be the hardest part of this plan, which is the south end of the plan, where we are close to an adjacent property line. We're using a fixture distribution in these BB fixtures that is primarily horizontal. We also do have baffles on the back of the light fixture to prevent any trespass out of the back of the fixture. So there's actually wedges on the back of it to prevent the light from going in that direction. So we're doing as much as we can to make sure that we're keeping the light on the site. And you can see through the photometric calculations we have, anything that's near the property line is 0.0 foot candles. Continuing around the back of the property, we have a series of, again, both building mounted fixtures and pole mounted fixtures with miscellaneous distributions in order to get adequate coverage from a safety perspective around the back of the building. Typically, on average for police facilities, they like to see at least 2 foot candles, where in a typical like shopping center parking lot, you can typically get away with 1 foot candle. Again, for the higher security purposes around the police department was the reason why we're bumping up the light a little bit. We also do have another pole around the impound area. Again, similar BB fixture with the cutoff toward the back so that it doesn't spill to the north properties. And then a couple more pole mounted lights around the street side of the building where the visitor parking is. And we have these 3 bollard fixtures shown in the front of the property. There is planting planned in these areas. So if there is some glare, those plantings may help to screen anything that is going in those directions, at least. But again, the fixtures we selected should not be very bright outside of where we need the light to be put.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Anybody have any questions on the lighting?
Yeah, I just have maybe a question or comment. So this commission is pretty sensitive when we about the rural look and the historic and rural character look of our buildings. Not only are they all town-owned buildings, but any buildings in town. So any chance there's a major renovation or certainly a new structure, we just kind of like to challenge the A&Es, to incorporate elements. Can you kind of go over, look, I have the artist renditions. Can you kind of go over some of the elements maybe you've hopefully brought into this?
Sure. And
again, it's for us, especially with the new building, especially with the town building, understanding that there's a balance between costs, but it seems like a great opportunity, especially again for a town building, on the major roadway to, incorporate some elements that really reflect our rural character and historic nature of North Branford.
Well, certainly we were being very mindful of the vernacular of this area, hence kind of, I think, the form that we took on this building. And we did notice when we were planning this that there is a building just north of here that is very similar in scale and character with the clear story, which I believe is in fact a milk barn. And come to find out later on that it's actually owned by one of the commissioners that or the town council members that we've been presenting this to. So the intent was to make sure that we stay in context with the farming nature of North Branford. Again, that's the reason why we're looking at using a Connecticut fieldstone with the tones that we would typically see of the site-built rock walls from the farms around the area, but using a board and batten siding, which is a more traditional approach to siding a building. The more contemporary pieces of it, of course, is this corner window within the training area. We're trying to bring in some of those elements of the traditional and contemporary to make a nice blend between the two, making it a 21st century building, but still having that quality of something that would fit in the landscape and the area as you drive up Route 20 here. We also have along the front of the building, oh good, it zooms in well. This colonnade along the front entrance. These, although they show up white, are designed to be wood in tone. We're going to be polyurethaning and staining them. There's also a wood beam that's carrying all the way across the front of this. Underneath this whole overhang of the front entrance, we're also using a simulated wood metal ceiling. So it looks like there's a wood ceiling above us, and we carry that actually into the lobby space of the building. We are going with a gridded window, again, trying to keep it a little more contextual to the area rather than it being just big punched window openings with no buttons in any of them. So again, we're trying to meet that vernacular, that aesthetic of this region.
Yeah, okay, I appreciate that. What was the point about the columns? You said they're white, but they're actually going to be stained natural wood. Is that what you said, or no?
Yes, correct. This rendering shows them as white, but we're planning currently on having them be natural wood.
Natural wood, okay. Good. All right, thank you. I appreciate that. It was very well said. I appreciate that.
Anything else?
Yeah, Harry, I have one more question. If we could take a look at the original site plan showing the driveway. I had a quick question on the driveway, and if Carrie has any input from our current police chief. I know when he first came to town, he remarked how the existing police station, if he's trying to make a left turn out of there onto the state road, sometimes it would take him like 5-10 minutes to get out of there. I didn't know if the town had any inkling or trying to get a light there to make it safer for both our men and women in blue, but also to the public on that stretch. Because I know safety is one of the biggest concerns for this commission. I didn't know if that was part of this plan or anything else like that, or if there's any comments on that for the traffic that our men and women of the police station would be encountering, both in normal circumstances and emergency circumstances.
Yeah, I did refer this to the police department, but I also had the comment that I'm sure he's very aware of what's going on over there, obviously, so I didn't receive comments directly back from him about the proposal. Obviously, they've been intimately involved in this, so I believe that they looked at that. Jim, I don't know if you have any comments.
Yeah, Alex, Jim Freddy, the police chief and Lieutenant Lovelace and Public Works has been involved in this intimately for the last 4 years. The shift, the maximum shift that the police department doesn't provide enough traffic really, and even if they fill that room, there's only 40 cars. I don't think the state would, even if you requested it, I don't even know if they give you one, because they don't like to put lights in midstream like this unless they have a reason, high traffic generator kind of reason. So I don't even, nobody seemed to think from either side that they needed it, and we haven't approached the state because just because I've experienced this somewhere else, that they're not inclined to give them out unless they think that there's a real need for it. So we didn't even go there with DOT. There is, however, We did, one of the sheets here is, we did provide sightline profiles, and we could see well over 650 feet in each direction, actually to the, it's a little more, required sight distance here, I think, was only, I don't know, like 590 feet, and we're showing 650, but the truth of the matter is you can see actually a little farther. So as far as, 45-mile-an-hour cars being able to stop or safe pulling out distances.
Right, and that's one of the reasons too why we did two things. One, we aligned with the adjacent driveway, at least as part of the future piece of that driveway. And two, we were originally looking at putting the driveway on the north side of this site, but the sight lines there become too short because of the bend in the road that happens there. So this is the opportune distances for sight lines here. Not to mention too, this is on the high side of the road, so the police cruisers will have better sight lines than where they're coming out of their current facility, whereas on the low side of the road.
Thank you. Anything else? Gary, do you have a proposed motion you can pop up there?
I do, yes. Thanks, Brian. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so as mentioned, I had drafted it with the standard conditions that are listed here that are applicable, and two special conditions, that one, for number 23, that any requirements of Connecticut DOT be incorporated in the final site plan for construction, subject to review and approval of the town engineer. Number 24, the relocation of the public works access drive and the drainage improvements identified as to be completed on the properties on the westerly side of Forest Road, across from the proposed police station, be completed to the satisfaction of the North Branford Public Works Director and town engineer.
Is there anything else, any other conditions anybody can think of, or are you good with those? So Carrie, if you wanna, you can read that and summarize, you don't have to read word for verbatim, and then the first person can move to approve it, so.
Okay, so, this is a motion to approve planning and zoning application 2021-1, site plan permit request under section 23, schedule A, line B-1, construction of a new police station, all associated site work, parking, stormwater infrastructure, on-site septic, landscaping, lighting, accessory shed, and fence impound area at 305 Forest Road, assessor map 47B, lot 4A, zone R40. The town of North Branford is the owner. James Preddy Criscolo Engineering LLC is the applicant. Shown on the plans, sheets 1 through 10, that are titled North Branford Police Department property located at 305 Forest Road, and all dated December 4th, 2020. We also have a photometric lighting plan by Visual Lighting Consultants dated October 13th, 2020, and North Branford New Police Department Facility, 305 Forest Road, by Silver Petroselli, and those are sheets A110, 111, A300, and 301. And again, that would be with the following standard conditions: 1C, 2, 4, 7, 8, 9, 21, and special conditions 23 and 24.
Who would like to move to approve that?
I'll move to approve that application 20.
Oh, so you're good, sure, that's good. Is there a second?
Okay.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Oh, I hope so.
Harry, you have to realize it takes a minute to get off of mute.
Well, like, I'm a little nervous there. I'm like, okay, we're gonna sit there on this one. Anyhow, any discussion? Trish, how do you vote?
Yes.
Who seconded that?
Alex did.
Alex? Your vote?
This is just a yes, no, or no reason behind it.
Yes, no.
Abstain.
Bill?
Yeah, I vote yes.
Ron?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Alex, I have to ask you, why are you abstaining from the vote? I didn't know if there was a conflict.
No, it's not a conflict. It is just our planning zoning regulations and the precedent that we've had of having the plans complete and no further projects prior to afterwards. And I'm not going to go into a deep explanation, but Mr. Chair, you've delayed a lot of applications prior to this one in the same account. I'm just wondering, when there's things that aren't on the plans, or there's still potential for things to change that are unknown, that I think that the committee should just wait to make sure everything is all set in stone. And since we had until March of this year to decide on this, I thought we could do this.
Well, Alex, if that was the way you felt, you should have brought that up before we made a motion to approve this. So, and you can't abstain. You can vote it. You either have to vote for it or against it. If you're abstaining, it means you can't participate for some reasoning. But can you scroll down to the standard conditions, Carrie? 23 and 24?
Yep. Sorry, hold on.
And Alex, you are right. We needed additional information. But is there anything in there, the final site plan from the Connecticut Department of Transportation, which Kurt would have to approve, and we've given Carrie the ability to approve things in the past, so I didn't think there was anything different in that one. And the relocation of the Public Works Drive and the drainage, that's basically a separate project, even though it needs to be incorporated eventually, but it's all a separate project when that comes down. So I didn't think there was anything on that. I wish I knew that you had issues with that. I'm not sure how the rest of the commission feels. But we've already voted on it when we brought it up for any discussion. Nobody brought that up. So Alex, if you want to vote no, you can, but I don't feel it's appropriate for you to abstain.
For me, it wouldn't be a vote for yes or no, because you're still weighing on that information. Like I said, I'm referring to other applications that we've had in years past, even the same year. Well, technically it's 2021, so last year, to which you made some of the same requests to. So I feel with the separate projects, heaven forbid something happened with the future projects that came after this one that no one saw, I wouldn't want that to impact this or any of the future projects for the town that incorporates these two parcels.
Well, I don't know how they can incorporate the two. We're giving Kurt the ability to make those decisions for us, as we've done with Carrie in the past. That's number one. Number two, this is a motion to vote yes or no on. If you were going to abstain from this, then you would need to abstain from the discussion and the vote. So I need a yes or no vote from you on this. Because we're moving to approve it, and I need a yes or no vote on this from you.
Correct. I'll guess I'll just do yes then.
Okay, thank you. And I also vote yes. Ron, did you vote?
Yes, I did. I voted
Okay.
yes.
Okay, so that passes 5-0.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you. All right. So Gary, the last thing is and this one here is with great sadness that I say this is the last town planners report you will be giving.
That's true. That is very
And I
true.
look at the bright side, next meeting will be the first town planners report Kurt will be giving.
That's a bright side for.
Yeah, I don't know if it's bright side, it's just a fact.
Just for the record, I'm still in denial, so just.
Well, Bill, I think there's one way we can get Carrie to stay here. It's very easy. We just filibuster this meeting. Like, we'll do, what movie was that with,
Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
Stewart? He filibustered for 48 hours. So Carrie thinks the last day is Friday, but I can go until Monday. I can just keep on talking and I'll just keep stuff off.
Whitland's tried last night, but somehow we talked him out of it. But
What do you have for our last town planners report?
let's see. So there's a meeting scheduled February 4th. Public hearing regarding a temporary special use application that Tilcon has submitted for stockpiling soil on their property. You remember they had applied for a zone change back when the pandemic had started. That was not successful for the parcels that are zoned residential. Now they're just looking for a temporary special use application. And then there's also an application for a new building off of Mansfield Drive, which is a site plan application. Both of those are being submitted by Jim Preddy. He's the engineer for both of those. And those are the two applications. So depending on what the outcome is of that, then you can decide at that meeting if you need to have a meeting on February 18th. And otherwise, it's been wonderful working with you all. I'm going to miss seeing your faces via Zoom or definitely in person, but keep in touch. So thank you.
I think we're all taking, Gary, just to let you know, we're taking this all personal.
That sounds about right.
On a serious note, I really have enjoyed working with you. I think you really brought a level of professionalism to this role, and I really always appreciated it. So you will be missed. So
thank you.
Good luck to you in Essex as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, you added a lot of value to everything you did as well. So it was greatly appreciated.
Yeah, you're insanely knowledgeable, and you were always quite gracious with, especially my learning curve. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
How long were you with us?
You guys
In other words, Kurt, you have big shoes to fill.
Well,
you have little shoes.
the ads are all out. I'm concerned the response is not going to be too good. They're tough shoes to fill. I mean, Carrie's brought a lot to the table. And again, working with her has been a pleasure. The positivity factor of the whole thing. It's
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We've come a long way since propane and package stores and pizza joints.
Yeah.
But
Oh, yeah.
yep. So, well, thank you.
Carrie, how long were you working in North Branford?
About 6.5 years.
Oh, wow. Kind of went by quick.
Yes.
Well, all the best. You're still not far away, clearly. And
We can all have lunch at the Grizz.
I'll
Well,
come
when
back
the-
here. No, we'll have lunch here.
Pandemic's over.
I told Carrie my cousin lives in Essex. I'm like, I got to tell him to stop dumping fill in his backyard. Take his permits out on his schedule.
It's just a swamp. Someone's got to fill it in.
Because Carrie's
Ron,
coming
you're
for
doing
you.
the takeout, right?
Yeah.
Do you have some time off before you start in Essex, or you're just moving in there right next week?
Yes, I'm gonna take next week.
Yeah, she's doing the week-long Essex train trip.
Yeah, orientation.
Yep. So,
Initiation.
Well, good luck to you. It's really been a pleasure. We've missed.
Thank
So-
you.
Yeah.
so Ron, I'm gonna have to bypass you tonight, because Carrie's last night. I want Carrie to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. I
Is
know
the cake,
Barbara would not-
one question before we stop.
Sure.
The cake is in the cafeteria, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's on,
Yeah.
Ron, it's on the front porch. Run out there and grab it.
You didn't get it with your packet? I got mine with my packet.
Yeah, I got a special one in my package too.
Kidding.
Carrie, Carrie, if you send me that motion, I'll get the minutes back to you tomorrow so we can clean it up.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
All right, Carrie, make a motion to adjourn.
All right, does that make it not official or something? You're gonna
Well,
trick
that's
me
something to
somehow.
Now, the first person will make a move
Okay,
to,
okay. A motion to adjourn the meeting.
somebody want to make a move to approve?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Lots of discussion, but we'll look
I
over.
say we filibuster this thing.
Yeah. There you go,
Carrie,
Ron.
all the
This
best.
passes, and adjourning Carrie's last meeting.
Thank
So-
you.
Best of luck, Carrie.
Bye.
Take care, Carrie.
Just
Take
a
care,
lot.
everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Everybody have a good night.
You too.
Stay healthy.
All right. Bye.
Yeah, you gotta do that. I couldn't cut you off.
All right, we survived.
Well, and he got rid of it.
Yes.
That's, I was worried it was going towards. It stayed